Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here today to talk about The Warrior Prophet, chapters 22 through 24, and then kind of a general wrap up of the entire book. It's my first time reading The Warrior Prophet, and I'm here with Daniel and Katerina, like we do every Friday, talking about the Prince of Nothing series. Daniel, do you want to give us an introduction?
I'm Daniel, and I've read the Second Apocalypse a few times now, so I'm a little bit
And
ahead of you guys.
yeah, and I'm Katerina, and this was my second time reading The Warrior Prophet, and I'm very excited because I forgot how wild and insane the ending of this book is. Like, if you were felt kind of let down by the ending of the first book, I think Baker makes up for it in this one.
Yeah, definitely. Just want to mention something really quick is that we're going to take a 2 week break. So if you're listening on the podcast, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the first four chapters of the Thousandfold Thought. So, but if you're watching on YouTube, you may see 1 week of a break. So, because the podcast is ahead of the YouTube videos. We did have a comment from Averill. Averill, thanks for watching and commenting. His comment was, I had the same questions about Katerina when it came to wondering who the defectives were during the Callus flashback training scene. I assumed maybe they were other Dunyanes in training who couldn't cut it for some reason. Maybe they couldn't let go of emotion, so now they are used for training purposes.
Yeah, I think that's similar to my conclusion that defectives were Danny that who failed to meet some standard that the Danyan set for themselves, and so were used for other purposes deemed appropriate to their skills, I suppose.
And the Dunyan have high standards, so
Yeah, everything has a purpose, I guess. If you know, for training, not very pleasant, but cool. So, chapters 22 through 24. What did both of you think? This one started out. Some surprises in chapter 22. I thought, but what did you all think?
it was your first time reading it. I want to hear what you thought.
I was surprised that well, first I thought it was kind of funny that they named the baby Moingus, and they made sure that no one knew about it because they were talking about it deliberately around him to make sure that he overheard the baby's name. So little, you know, good old Kellis is. But yeah, that caught me by surprise a little bit, and of course, well, I think Martimus is in the first one. The when he tries to kill Confus, and that doesn't work out too well for him. And I'm really starting to hate Sarcellus. I know we kind of laughed about Sarcellus, but he's just like that villain that sticks around for too long, and you start to really like. At first, you appreciate him, and then it's like I really want him to be dead because he keeps getting in the way. And of course,
That's
yeah. I'm sorry, Kareem. Go ahead.
no, that's interesting because I had the opposite reaction to Sir Celis.
Really?
Like, yeah, like the more time we spent with him, I he kind of grew on me.
Oh,
But I can see how you would be frustrated by him.
what about you, Daniel? Are you pro or anti Sarcellus?
He's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he. I mean, I like him, but he keeps managing to, kind of slip by and undetected. So I just kind of like want him to be dead. And I always love it when a book references the title, either the title of the book or the title of the series in the book. I don't know why I get a kick out of that kind of thing. So when they call him a false prophet and they call him the Prince of Nothing, I thought that was really neat. It brings me joy.
And then they call him the Warrior Prophet. They allude when he finally comes off the circumfix. He talks about the thousandfold thought, which is what we're heading into next.
Mm.
Yeah, very curious to find out what that could be, what that's all about.
This must be really tough for both of you to not spoil anything for me. So,
Was this book better than The Darkness That Comes Before? Which one was better to you?
ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough question. I think Darkness is better, but maybe it's because it's the first book and it's like the introduction to the series. So I kind of have a special connection with it because it's a but not to say this book isn't good. I think it's right there next to it.
Yeah, I think I share your opinion. I don't think that Warrior Prophet is a bad book by any means, but especially on the second read, I didn't find the first like 2/3 all that exciting. The ending I think is wonderful. Like so much happens, there's so much intrigue and so many surprises. But for me, that the first like half, first 2/3 dragged a little bit. And I mean, I love Darkness. It's one of my favorite books of all time. So it's hard to compete with that one.
Hmm. What do you think, Daniel? After your fifth or sixth time reading the series,
Mm, I appreciate them both for their different parts, but I probably like The Darkness That Comes Before the most because it's how I discovered the series. It's like my warm moment since The Darkness That Comes Before, or the whole Second Apocalypse is my favorite books. It's like that old, warm, fuzzy book that other people feel, only it's kind of brutal.
it's true. And of course, I was really when I say I started to really dislike Marcellus, I was really starting to like Surway, and of course, she's not around anymore now either.
Yeah, you shouldn't probably get too attached to characters. Um, I speak from experience.
We lost a couple notable ones right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Before we get into Survey or anyone else, I just want to take a moment to appreciate or well, maybe not appreciate, maybe appreciate is not the right word, but to acknowledge the loss of Martimas, the Compasses General. Um, I think we mentioned, like we already talked about it last week, that he he was lost to that he got lost to us, that Callas managed to convert him, but it was still sad to see him betray Confis after so much that they went through together. He's one of the favorites of mine, and Confis is a favorite of mine, so obviously I do feel bad for Confis as well.
Compass said he was going to keep him around. He's still got his head somewhere close by.
Yeah, I was a little bit morbid.
Yeah, well, he hesitated, right? He could have, but he didn't strike when he could have, and so
He got killed by Sarsalis.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. Well, he also hesitated when he was supposed to kill Callus, or at least assist in his assassination. So, like, I guess you get the sense that he was a little bit torn. Um, but I mean, in the end, he did choose Callus over Confis.
the Dunyan charm.
Yeah. And I mean, and you kind of get the sense at the very end that maybe he wasn't as happy being Confis's general as we previously thought. He has this like one line about kind of feeling bad about the things he had to do under the orders of the Ikure. Um, so maybe that could be a reason why Callus got to him, but still, was loss of a great general.
Yeah, Also, there's a quote in here that I think is kind of foreshadows what's about to happen to Kellis when he's talking to Espinette. He says, "Sometimes we must cross death to reach our destination." So it kind of sets up what's about to happen.
I think he says that right when he exits the probability trance, doesn't he?
Yeah, right before, a few pages before it, Surway is killed. So it's on 519, and Surway is killed on 525. So it's right before.
Yeah, so like before you know what happens, you could think that maybe he, like you kind of left wondering if this is something that he planned for it to happen, or if he just was not, like if he was able to predict this possible reality where he gets crucified, or it's not really crucifixion, but sort of crucified by the great names.
That was
Yeah.
brutal.
He had tried to like go into the probability trance a couple times before, but said it just all went into shadow because he was felt trapped. But then he went in, and after 3 days, I think it said he came out and said that to Esmnet.
Yeah, something like that. Like Esmond would bring him water, and he would meditate.
I love the little romance they have going on too. Just like because she knows that he's. She tells him something like, "You spin the sweetest lies" or something like that. Like she knows that but she loves him anyway.
Do you not feel bad for a commune? Or
Yeah.
do you not think that she's being manipulated by Kellis?
No, she definitely is. But I think the Kamian made the mistake of leaving after all this time, and after they had made this reconnected and they were together, and he just leaves, and so I feel bad for him, but at the same time, kind of
He should have chose love over books.
like, yeah.
Yeah, the scene where he reunites with Esmonette was pretty brutal. When he's like thinking of all the things he's going to say to her and all the jokes he's going to make and how he's going to hold her and touch her, and then she's desperate because Kellis is dying, and then he finds out that she's having Kellis's baby, and his, like, everything that he imagined would happen just gets shattered.
You think he says something like "still a whore" or something like that? Because he goes from this really loving and caring, and he's wanting to get to her, and then it's like, yeah, it's not quite as he expected it to work out.
She was like his reason for surviving the torture from the Scarlet Spires, and the whole time he's getting in there and walking up and finding out we already know, so it's just dreadful hearing his fluttery, happy thoughts while everyone's dying and like eating rats around him.
Boiling books.
Yeah.
That hurt.
So that was pretty rough to read for me.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, I do agree with you, Steve, that it's, at least to me, it's unclear, like, what part of blame Esmonette bears. Like, I don't know exactly how to feel about her succumbing to Callus. Like, to what extent is it just manipulation? To what extent does she actually like him or love him? And yeah, what would have happened if Akamian hadn't left? It's a complicated situation.
It's a good question. What would have happened if he didn't leave?
Who is more right, Kellis or Tontus? At this point in time, who just is better? Who's a better person? Who would you want to follow?
Well, I'm biased.
I said at this point, Confucius doesn't seem like a very nice person. He's only trying to gain Ikari more power, more land. So
Yeah, I mean, I think neither of them has particularly good intentions, or at least pure intentions. I would say, at least with the Icuries, you kind of know what they're after. With Kellis, it's becoming more and more unclear what his end goal is.
And could
I
you ever
agree.
really trust him? Could you ever really trust Callus?
As a reader, we know better because it's been alluded to us. But if you were in the desert when Kellis dug water out of sand, you might have a different opinion.
Yeah, but then I think the idea that you have someone who's been able to gather so much following in such a short time, someone who has who has no claim to who's like official claim to power. He's not a noble, he's not from the three seas. Like that to me is scary. Like having people follow leaders blindly, it's never that situation does not make me feel good, I would say. But it's hard to say. Like we do have more insight as readers than the Inrithi. But I think I would be skeptical about people putting so much faith into one person.
Well, I think to Daniel's point about, if you were all, about to die in the desert and Callus was the one who saved quite a few of them, then maybe their opinion is a little different, but more willing to follow him.
There's multiple stories about him, how he defended the Nair's banner all by himself and killed all the people. And what else? There's a couple other stories about him, and then they just get exaggerated and exaggerated. And then every time he talks, people listen. He's been just giving sermons. So I think in the middle of a bunch of atrocity, someone like that would be alluring. Just as change, something different than what the Icaries are gonna do, which is just rule like they always have.
Yeah, I mean, like I understand. Like I do agree with you that, like from their perspective, I understand why they would follow him. I just personally, I'm a bit distrustful of personality cults.
I get it.
But it does make sense within the context of everything that's happened, why people flock to him and why they worship him.
And now that he got chained to a circle like Salvador da Vinci's human painting to his dead wife and made it all the way down alive, and then ripped a heart out of a chest.
That was a very confusing part. I did. Thanks for bringing it up, because this is the second time I read, like the second time I read this book, and I read this part, and I still don't understand whose heart, where, from what, like why. Is it supposed to be literal? Is it supposed to be figurative? I have no idea.
What do you think, Steve?
I thought it was literal the way I read it. It sounded literal, but maybe I'm wrong.
So what happened? What
I
literally happened?
think a heart was pulled out. I just don't know whose heart was pulled out. I reread that part. Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that. Yeah, because I was really confused. That was one of the parts that I was not quite sure what the heck was going on. Because the way I read it was that he pulled it out, but I don't know. Maybe it's figurative and not literal.
I don't know. Like, if it's literal, it would be strange that he pulled out his own heart. So it could, like, if it was Surway's heart, then it would maybe make sense. But if it was figurative, I don't really know what it's supposed to mean.
Do we know, Daniel?
Or if we're speaking figuratively, are Dunyi not supposed to? Are they supposed to not have a heart? Like, they're not supposed to have any emotions, feelings.
Figuratively, physiologically, they have hearts.
Yeah, I figured physiologically, yes.
Or do they?
Well, when he's first coming off the circumfix, what is he thinking and saying? He's just like looking at Saraway, thinking like, how could she have died, right? She's not dead. She couldn't be dead. So these are all kind of unreasonable thoughts for a Dunyan to be having. If that makes sense, because we're in his head at that point. And then he's like begs his father to help, and then I think right after that is when he first like says, "Oh, the thousandfold thought." He thinks he's grasped it, and they bring him down from the circumfix, and he pulls a heart out of a chest and holds it up. And at first it's his heart, but then when he holds it up, it's Saraway's heart, and he's still alive. So physically, obviously, it wasn't his heart, right?
I think that's a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
So that was in his own head. It was his heart, which is weird, right? It's like a kind of a glimpse of a sociopath kind of going crazy. A know-it-all, just going nuts. There was also one other part where we were in his head and he was up on the circumfix and he was talking about how the path was unobtainable and he couldn't do it and he just thought he was dead, right? Well, he dangled up on this, up on the umbrella tree. I don't remember what the tree was exactly called.
I think it was an eucalyptus, but I don't remember the name.
And I thought it was all going to burn down when I came in and walked up to it the first time. He was angry.
Well, he had a reason to be angry. But in the end, he, like, again, Akamian chooses the apocalypse over Esmanet, over his feelings.
Yeah,
So I guess the ranking is like Esmanet, books, apocalypse.
That was an intense weighing in his soul. I think he said he like weighed Esmanet against the apocalypse in his soul. He was having a rough time there for a minute.
Yeah, but then Callus tells him about the skin spice, and that is more important to Akamian than his anger or vengeance.
What about the scene where Nair was talking to Cutlass, beating up Enrithi, pounding their skulls, and I think he even stuck his thumbs through one of some eye sockets.
Yeah.
He was just being real mad, being a weeper.
Yeah. And here I thought the madness was lifting.
He couldn't even see Kellis, and they were having a conversation, right? It was all
Well,
too blurry and too dark for Nair to see up there or something.
it wasn't quite clear to me well, I just assumed it was like his inner voice, like he was talking to Kellis in his head, like he wasn't actually talking to Kellis who was hanging there on this circumference.
He's got some inner voice that's Kellis that always is yelling at him, just like he has the voice of all of his tribesmen calling him a weeper all the time. He's got a lot of demons that he keeps in his head. But yeah, those passages, they didn't have quotation marks, whereas the Acadian passages did have quotation marks. So you're probably right. It was Nair just talking to himself, saying what Kellis would say, trying to think of what the last thing he really said to him meant, which was something about the secret of war.
Yeah, war is conviction. We learn from Callus. And apparently conviction is stronger than intellect. It seems. Considering the result of the very last battle at the end of the book. There didn't seem to be much intellect involved in that strategy. Just a lot of very convicted people or believers launching themselves on the canyon.
Yep. What did you think about the battle part? The fact that the Kayanin came in and encircled them in a city that had already been besieged, and they just went in and destroyed the whole thing, and then they all get locked in there, just sick and starving.
This whole journey was a really long one. I think Katerina mentioned the first half or so, really long march, and so I think that was a way of kind of wearing us all down, like because of through the desert and all the time we spent and the starvation and boiling books, drinking book broth to stay alive, or their armor. I think all that was a way of kind of, because I felt I was tired reading about the Holy War and what they went through, and so in that sense, I think it was effective, but it just took a while.
Yeah, I felt similar. I like the desert part.
Of course, yeah.
But I did also felt a little bit worn down. But the final battle is I mean, the whole siege of Karaskan is just crazy. Like one of the most chilling lines that I found in one of, I think it was maybe the last chapter, the penultimate chapter, is when Akamian enters Karaskan. They're walking him through the city, and then I think he enters Prois's palace, and there's a Canine woman, and he's like, "This is the first Canine that I've seen since I entered the city." and it's just like one line, but it gives you like it gives you the scale of the destruction and horror that they and Reethi brought on the city, and like just and this like the environment that they find them, like it's crazy, like the fact that they destroy the city, they besiege the city, then they destroy it, and they get themselves besieged, and then they're left there with the destruction that they themselves wrought on. It's the whole like last like 4 8 chapters are just insane.
Yeah, when I read that part, I stopped and thought about that too. Would be crazy, and yet all of them are dressed like the Kayanine now. They all are like shrunken in. Their armor's too big for them. Only the Shriel Knights are still dressed like proper, but their stuff's so ragged and torn that they just look wearing chainmail basically.
I think it described it as they look like children wearing their parents' armor, something like that. Like they were tiny and withering away.
The part where you find out that Nair's been like drinking his horse's blood. Lots of them have been drinking their horse's blood. Their horses are all like shrunken in, shriveled up.
I was surprised there were any horses left by that point.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
there are other people eating worse things in that city.
I don't think these are their initial horses. These are Kayanine horses.
Yeah, they could have been. Yeah.
Definitely Daybreak's dead. Gamian's poor mule.
I think he said at one point he lost his mule. I don't know if they specifically mention it.
He does mention, but I didn't remember. Well, he took it to the library with him, so I guess it got destroyed. Like it either got destroyed or taken by the Scarlet Spires. I don't remember exactly.
I like to think he's freed and he's in a field somewhere enjoying life. Just poor mule.
Didn't get bloodletted or eaten.
Yeah, but I would think the horses would be some of the first animals to go. I mean, because they're big and meaty and if you're starving, I mean, they're eating rats. So.
Then we had Confus's whole little game he played with Nair to like drag him against Kellis by having those guards go, or those two guys go till they found Nair and having a conversation right next to him.
Yeah.
About the son's name, just to really piss him off.
Worked.
And once Kellis went up on the Swazan, or the circumfix, he carved a Swazan on his neck. So he's got one directly on his neck now. Kind of made it sound like he was trying to kill himself, and then everyone looked at him and just seen blood all over him. What the hell has this guy been through?
Yeah,
But
that's Swazan was for Survey, right?
Maybe. He denied that it was him that killed her. Tried, but he knows it was him that killed her.
He seems to go through a lot of U-turns in these last few chapters. Like he goes from following Kellis to betraying him and then saving him.
And now he seems to think like hatred is his weapon. His hatred of Kellis kept him alive. His hatred of everyone is what's propping him along in life now. Just pure rage.
I mean, it's an interesting comparison with the Kamian, who decides that decides eventually that the fate of the world is more important than his rage or his vengeance, whereas Nayor like arrives at the conclusion that the only thing that can keep him going is exactly that. It's the vengeance and the anger he feels towards Moangas.
And then there's a part where they're both like talking about, or Nair walks into the meeting and he's like, does Akamian know the same thing I know? Because Akamian throws the head out and starts trying to save Kellis when Nair was going to try to save Kellis. And he's like, I don't need to. Akamian's going to do it. Maybe he knows the same thing I know, but they can have different conclusions.
Yeah, Akamian fails, but in the end it doesn't matter because Nior and Elizaris succeed in saving Kellis. But I feel really bad for Akamian. Like, he made this amazing speech about the apocalypse and about saving the world from the second one, and they all just laugh at him.
Yeah.
I felt really heartbroken for Akamian.
Yeah, good thing the Scarlet Spires at the same time decided they needed him anyways, so they just ignored the whole procession and went to find out how he knows. Who knows how they would have found out how he knows if they would have got him down.
Yeah. Did you guess that Kefra Mooney was a skin spy, Steve?
No, I didn't. I didn't catch that one at all. But I did love Akamian getting laughed at because usually you expect the whole, everyone to kind of, or everyone gets excited and kind of on the same page, and that didn't happen. And I love that. But I think that probably speaks to just the respect that Akamian has or doesn't have, that he's
So, which is no respect.
very little, yeah.
And the mandate themselves as a school,
Yeah.
chasing shadows, as everyone calls it.
Yeah. But I mean, just going quickly back to Kefra Mooney, if you reread this book, you'll notice that there are little hints. So there's at first you learn that there was another body in High Anon that washed up in the river without a face. So we know there is a second, at least another skin spy in among the Scarlet Spires. And then there is, I think it's during the Battle of Anwarat, the second battle, where the A9 camp, or the A9 army gets routed by the Kianin, and like the general dies, and all the generals died, but the Kefra Mooney like miraculously escapes. Which is very suspicious on a second read, but not really something you would catch on your first one, I think.
I totally missed that. So there's a body that washes up without a face. I don't know if I remember that. That's interesting.
When Rao washes up, or not in Rao, when the
Geshrooney.
Akamian's first little guy that he got killed talking to him in the bar, that guy washes up with another guy.
Yeah, they do like in the Scarlet Spires do an investigation. They want to know if it happened before, and they found a record of a body that washed up like a few years before Geshrooney, also without a face. So they just assume it was like another spy, or like another spy of the Mandate. But I mean, we know that Geshrooney was killed by a skin spy, so it's safe to assume that the first corpse was turned, or was replaced by a skin spy as well.
What else did you notice on this reread that you didn't before?
Man, I have to think about it. I can't think of anything from the top of my head. I I don't know. If I come up with something, I'll let you know.
Seems like the kind of series that you can read it like Daniel has a bunch of times over and still catch new things. There's just so much in these books.
Yeah, for sure.
The world is pretty layered. I think that it dates all the way back to flint tools, basically. So a lot has happened in those years. One thing I did notice is, I think on the last chapter, there was a quote at the beginning that said, "What is the meaning of a deluded life?" And I just started Light, Time, and Gravity, his autobiography, and it starts out with that exact passage. What is the meaning of a deluded life?
Really?
Yep. So that
What
was
is
an
it?
interesting correlation. Who knows? I don't have a PhD in philosophy. Even the people that do haven't told any of us, so I don't think they know either.
There's so many great quotes in the book, but one that stuck out to me was on 578. It was strange the way memory cared nothing for the form of the past. Perhaps this is why those dying of old age were so often incredulous. Through memory, the past assailed the present, not in queries arranged by calendar or chronicle, but as a hungry mob of yesterdays.
It's good.
That's good stuff.
One I picked out that's similar, I guess, is for all things there is a toll. We pay in breaths, and our purse is soon empty.
Yeah, I had a couple, but I didn't write them down. So if I find one, I'll read it out loud. But I can't see it now.
I went through a few tabs.
That's a lot of tabs.
Yeah, it went a little crazy.
But these are very tabbable books.
Yes.
We got an interesting history lesson from Acadian that was cool to read about. When he
Yeah.
was trying to convince them all of the technique, some invisible monsters that they forgot about. What did you think about that, Steve?
I love that we finally got kind of like a history of what has happened in the past and how that past you know affected this story, reasons why certain things are happening. But it was a lot in like 3 pages. It was a lot of information in 3 pages. But it was great. Kind of setting up, I guess, the rest of the series, right? It's the impression I got from it.
A little bit, or history, at least some history. It talked about how the Inkarai that came down from, what did it call it? I don't know, the worst thing to fall from the heavens. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's on 581. It starts. Let me pull it up.
And they talk about how these guys that came out wielded flesh like blacksmiths turn steel into weapons. These guys work flesh the same way, which is interesting, right? What does that mean? What does this even mean?
Well, I would say it's called the techne for a reason.
What's that?
Well, it does sound a little bit related to technology. maybe. I don't know.
It's good. It's an interesting thought.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Yeah.
What did you think, Steve? Did you catch that?
No, I didn't. I didn't catch that. With fantasy, sometimes it's hard to, you know, if it's just a weird name or if it's related to something. I was trying to find that part where it references the fell from the sky, or
There's been several references I've brought up about like an arc coming down and it being a confusing place where a lot of bad stuff happened, but I think I have it highlighted too. I can find it. So it's interesting. Their magic is called the techne, which is similar to technology, and they're the ones charged with creating the skin spies, the bash rags, the raku, which are dragons, and the no god Mogfaro. It even says that when they went down there, they found some stuff that they had never even like used yet, but nobody could figure out how to use it because it talked about the wars and the non-men had went and basically defeated the Inkarai all the way back up to the twin golden horns and then blocked and defeated them and blocked it off with glamours, they called it. And then they came down and were teaching men, and eventually one of the mage tribes heard about it and decided they were going to go up there, and then they called themselves like the second coming of the Inkarai and started trying to figure out these instruments that are on this ark, which sounds sci-fi. Sounds pretty sci-fi.
I don't really know what to say without spoiling anything.
Me either. All I know is that it sounds sci-fi.
Well, there is a golden arc that fell from the void to the earth. So, yeah.
So let me ask this, and I know that neither of you will spoil, but do we get a lot of answers in the next book, or does it carry over into the second or the next series? I guess how much of this is answered in the next book? How much of it is carried over? What percentage?
Like Katerina said, this series is based on something that is a historical event. Semi-loosely, semi-not loosely. If you read afterwards what happened, then the ties are quite strong. But then there's a whole little side story that definitely didn't happen in the world's history. And that will it'll get brought up just like it has before.
I think it's safe to say that the Prince of Nothing trilogy concerns itself mostly with the Holy War. Like it does resolve the story of the Holy War. But you will get more of the lore from the ancient past in the next books, like in the Aspect Emperor books. So the main story of that we've been reading about so far does get resolved in the Thousandfold Thought. but there are a lot of questions left unopened. So that you have to continue with the Aspect Emperor.
He has a way of ending his books to where you'll want to figure out what happens next. Mostly, apparently, except in his Warrior Prophet. Or not the Warrior Prophet, the White Luck Warrior, according to Katerina.
Well, yeah. For those of you who are not aware, I did just finish the White Lock Warrior, and it's not that it did make me want to figure out what's going to happen later, but considering all the endings of all the books I've read so far, it did feel a little anticlimactic and confusing and messy without getting into any spoilers.
Well,
We shall see. I was so happy when Sarcellus finally got killed. That made me happy.
Yeah, I was a bit sad. Not that he was a good guy, but I guess it was interesting for me to read from my POV that's so evidently not human. Like that's something that made him interesting to me. That he's not like he's not an animal really. Well, he's sort of an animal. He's maybe sort of a machine, but also like has a very high level of intelligence that makes him seem kind of human. But very very clearly he's not human. So like that's something I found interesting about his character and about his POV sections. And you also get to learn a little bit more about the consult and the Inkroi through him. So that's also what makes him interesting, I think.
That's a good point. And whenever Saban pops up, I always have to laugh. He was king, and everyone was starving. Just got a good chuckle out of that. Because for those who don't know, Saban is Katerina's favorite character. For Saban.
Yeah, finally a king of Coruscant.
which is their tomb. It was going to be their tomb.
Yeah, nearly was.
And he doesn't even have the spine to, like when, he's like he owes everything to Callus essentially, but he doesn't even have the spine to support him against all the other great names because he just wants to be king. What a terrible, weak character.
That's fair. And when the Holy War does leave, and they after they accept the offer, I was surprised that they accepted, and they continued on their march.
What offer are you talking about?
Let me pull it up. When the Kian sent a message to the men of the Tusk whom he knew were doomed. The message was an offer, an extremely generous one. If the Holy War relented, yielded Karkstand, and forswore their worship of the false gods, then they would be spared and given lands.
Okay, right. Well, they seemingly accepted, or they send ambassadors to the what's his name? Padi Raja.
Yeah.
The throat
Who-
slitters.
Yeah, who then go on to slit their own throats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which gives you an idea of how strong influence Callus holds over these people.
Hmm. And the last, I think the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages were probably the darkest yet. In this, I think the most disturbing of the 2 books that we've read so far. Anyway, that was pretty intense.
And what happens? What was intense?
Tell us in detail.
Oosh, that'd be tough.
No, please don't tell us in detail.
Yeah, yeah. That was kind of, that was rough, but
Yeah, that was pretty jarring. Like we've been following the Holy War the whole time, at least in this book. Like we spend most of the time in the south, and then suddenly, like 5 pages from the end, we jump to the very north.
mhm.
Um, and you get a bit of a glimpse of what the consult are about. And there seems to be it seems to suggest that there is a sort of an alliance between the Strank, the consult, and the non-man.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused because they were all there at the end, and I expected it to just be 1 or 2, but they were all gathered there. So I was a little bit confused at the end of who exactly was there and who was, kind of who was involved in it. But
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what we can say about it without spoiling anything.
well, it was, well, in the last line, or the information that they wanted was, what was it? Who are the Dunyan? But I did find it a little weird that when they kidnapped I forget his name that we're following, and they take him to the camp, and whoever didn't find their families were killed immediately,
Yeah.
and the other ones were tortured and other in the most horrendous ways you can imagine. But um, so I thought that was kind of, I figured it's because they used it as leverage to get information and kind of use it against them. So that's kind of was my thought. But I don't know if there's more to that you can talk about.
I mean that's the same that I got from it. I don't know if there's anything else, like any other reason why they would kill the people who didn't have anyone they cared about. Um, yep. So I think I had the same thoughts as you, Steve. I don't know if Daniel has anything to add to that.
I had about the same thoughts. They do say that they worship the same god.
Yeah, they do.
They worship the dead god. I think the Phantom also worship the dead god.
I think they
I
even
think
say that at
they,
one point, right?
I mean, the Skilvendi worship the dead god. I think the Kenin just worship the one god, as opposed to the one god and all the other gods as the Enrithi. I think.
And they do mention the Great Ruiner. Um,
I think it's Cercellus who says to Neor that they worship the same god. But I think so. I thought the implication there was that the like Sarcellus is belongs to the consult, who sort of worship the no god, and then Neor is Skilvendi, and they also worship the Lokong, the no god. So I thought that that was the connection between the two.
Hmm.
Who is being tortured at that last scene? Who's being tortured and who is there? Isn't it the consult that's there? And the Sylvandi tribe?
Were there Sylvendi? I thought they were just some random Norse Rye people,
Yeah, I thought they were just a random.
but maybe not.
Maybe. The name's Angelus. That's a weird name.
Yeah, I don't know. I just assumed there were like some Norse Rye tribe living up there in the north, and they came across a tribe of the Shrank.
I'll have to read it again. The part was pretty confusing. There were shields made out of faces and clothing made out of human skin and just lots of rough stuff. Those Shrank are pretty brutal. I think the fire pits just had dead babies in them. I guess that's what they like to eat.
What did you have any thoughts on the winged creature that makes an appearance at the very end?
I thought back to what's the creature's name? That met with Sorcellus, the little face.
The Synthes.
Synthes.
That's an interesting thought.
I love how you guys handle spoilers.
Right
this must
here,
be a tough one.
It says it's talking about when the thing's like killing his family and his kids in front of him, trying to figure out a question he doesn't know the answer to. It says, effortlessly, the Inkorai snapped Valrus's tether and hoisted her before him, held her as though she were a doll. Bengula shrieked, "Mama? Mama?" So it says that the Inkorai hoisted up this guy's wife. And what are Inkorai?
I wonder if we read that section.
Yeah,
It's
it
5
is
pages,
hard.
but it's a lot.
It is hard to keep track of what you're already supposed to know or not.
And all these people who have lived for so long, their names just get stacked up and up and up. So they get called by 50 different names, just depending on who's calling them the name, which can add to the confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Synthes already has like 5 other names.
They are a race of lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the epigraphs in the darkness that comes before is about the Inkroi. And it says that they are the race of lovers and something else, which I can't remember. But there's like one short epigraph that talks about them.
Yeah, it's tough to keep up. It's in the gloss or in the darkness.
Yeah, I think it was an epigraph in darkness.
Oh, okay.
Once we get to the end of the thousandfold thought, you can read that 100-page appendix and really get in there.
It's exciting.
There's a part where this Emperor asks Angelus, he says, "Do you know who we, or do you know what we are?" And he says, "The Great Ruiner." And it says, "No, we are not he. We are his servant. Save my brother. We are the last of those who descended from the void." So they descended from the void. This guy and his brother are the last ones left. But this is happening on the entire other side of the world, which we haven't been to all book, really. This book
Yeah.
only dealt with the immediate. And I would expect kind of more of that. We're still in the middle of a holy war. We got a young boy turned into a man trying to find his father. A heartbroken barbarian who just wants vengeance on the guy who broke his heart.
So it's basically a romance.
Hey,
Basically.
we have a whore that's now married a prophet and is pregnant with his child, turned into a queen of nothing.
I do get the impression that Espinette has some kind of significance, though. That she's gonna play a major part in the story at some point. There's something about her that's special. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Kellis, he's talking to someone. I forget to mark the page, but Kellis answers something like she sees things that you don't, or she knows things that you don't. So I kind of got the impression that she's going to play a big part in the story at some point.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, she is quite intelligent and devoted to Kellis, so she is someone he can probably rely on to delegate things to her if need be. But that's all I say about that.
Did you at any point think that about Sarway?
No. I didn't think she'd die in this one, but I didn't think she served that big of a part. But I wanted her to survive. But
That
Yeah.
reminded me of an interesting part where Espinet's kind of like calling Sarway dumb. You know, like, what does Kellis even see in this ditzy girl? And then she realizes that it was like she was easy to fool. It was the absolute devotion, yet she's so much smarter and she's been fully deceived the exact same way. Just the same way as that little naive girl, no matter how smart she thinks she is.
That's a good point. I thought it was pretty sad to know that like for once Survey was actually happy. Like for a very brief period of time, like no one was beating her or abusing her. She felt loved and she had people or children of her own to love. And then it just gets all destroyed and taken away from her, and she's has her throat slit and is hang upside down from a circumference. she like I don't know, like her entire journey hit me a lot harder on this time reading through the series. So like know that she finally found like a moment of peace, and then it just gets taken away, made it all the more sad.
Everyone was dying all around her. She doesn't get to be happy. That's insane. She was insane to be happy in the midst of like people eating rats and horse blood, trapped there in a tomb. But she was happy. You're right. I came in for one brief moment, was happy. Estimate for a brief moment has been happy. Maybe Estimate's still happy. She's happy now, anyways. Kellis is off the wall or off the tree, and it seems like he's won the holy war. They have to yield to him now. It's like if Jesus eventually got pulled off the cross and they're like, oh, we're sorry. What should we do?
Yeah, except Jesus didn't come back to assemble an army and destroy another nation. As far as I remember.
He inspired the words that would later do that, though.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's the history we're reading about.
There's one moment that I wanted to mention about Kellis when he's hanging on the circle upside down, and he's sort of like it's unclear if he's dreaming or just having visions, or like it's unclear like what state he's in, but he has a vision. I think there's one that when he's in tunnels, and then there's one of like a person and a tree, and he hears the voice of the no god, or at least a voice that asks the same questions that we know the no god asks at the Battle of Mangetta. I thought that was interesting. I don't really know what to think about it, but it seems strange that he would have those kinds of have those kind of dreams or visions while he was hanging on the tree.
Didn't he also have those once before? Or am I wrong? Could have been a Camian, but I remember reading, what do you see in bold print once before?
I think that was just a Kamian. As far as I remember.
Mangetta?
Yes.
Could have been.
I think so. I think that's just Siswatha's memories that we've read about up until the moment where Kellis has his dreams. So I wondered if that was somehow related to him being crucified. If something was happening to him.
It reminded me of another time Kellis kind of went crazy. I don't remember when it was, but he was having trouble walking all the paths, and there was just a couple words that said a dead wife.
Right. Yeah, I think that was somewhere like early, like in the early chapters of this book, where he's going through all the different possible versions of the future, and one of them
they're all too abstract, but he still is like glimpsing pieces of them. Or maybe he's going crazy. But he was on the circumfix thinking about how he wanted to save his wife, Sarah, when he finally came to asking his father to save his wife, even though he knew she was dead.
Yeah, that felt very unlike Kellis. Him sort of wishing for Cersei to be alive, or like wishing her into living. It seemed like he almost cared about her.
Almost.
You've been hung upside down and haven't ate or drank in who knows how long. Who knows what level of delusion you have.
Yeah, that's my question.
Nair is still dealing with that too. He's like still trying to come out of being insane, he thinks.
Yeah, if you spend like, what is it, like 2 days, 3 days hanging upside down, isn't all that blood going to do some brain damage to you? Is my question.
I don't know if it'll do brain damage. It's not good.
It'll definitely mess you up. If anyone has a chance of surviving it, it's someone who knows how to meditate, probably. A Buddhist monk, I would expect to be better at handling it than other people.
Yeah, or someone who has the ability to control their blood flow, blood circulation.
Wim Hof, maybe. He's pretty good at it.
So did you notice anything on this reread, Daniel, that you had it before?
A little bit. I noticed a little bit. It was definitely good to read and catch the way people acted in certain parts. Just like Katerina said with Sephiroth. Is that the right name? Whatever the name is.
Keframuni.
Yeah. How they didn't act completely normal. Just like Scaris didn't act completely normal. Catching things when you know people's positions ahead of time. So I just see a little deeper than you into the darkness that comes before.
Yeah, I did think of one thing, but I can't say it because that would be a spoiler for the next book. So when we get to it, I'll mention it again. But it's something that has to do with the IQ race, with the Imperial family.
Were you sad that we didn't get a lot of the Imperial family? Katerina, you love them.
Yes, I was sad. I mean, I was happy that we got a little bit more of Confis at the end. I was very excited when it seemed like he was going to succeed in defeating Kellis. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. But it is interesting that he's basically the only one who's been able to resist to Kellis's influence the whole time.
With hate. Just sheer hatred. Conviction. Conviction is the key to war, and he has so much hatred that it is conviction.
I wouldn't say that it's hatred. I would say his conviction is more about his faith in himself. Like, I feel for a lot of the other people, they want something to believe in, perhaps. Whereas Confis is totally fine just being himself, or being with himself, which is not something you can say about other normal people.
There's not a lot of normal people in this series. So, they're all dead, most of them.
But yeah, I'm excited to see how the Holy War situation evolves in the next book. Do you have any predictions, Steve, for what's going to happen in the Thousandfold Thought?
I knew that question was coming, and honestly, I have no idea. I don't have any clue what's going to happen.
Do you think they're going to reach Shaima?
No. If they do reach it, I don't think it'll be what they think it is. That's my prediction. So I think Esminet will have a big part to play, an important part, and nothing will go the way that we think or they think. Well, for us first-time readers, anyway, think that it'll go. So it makes the series really hard to predict because it's just it's just so many crazy things that pop up and so many different threads going that it's hard to make predictions. But I'm excited to get into the next one. Just have no clue what's coming though.
Yeah, I think especially with Kellis, it's really hard to say what he's like. It's not clear what he's planning at all. If he's there just like if he's actually there to assassinate his father, or if there's something else going on with him. So I understand that it's hard to make any predictions if you don't even know like what the characters' motivations are or what it is that they are striving for.
There's a part he was talking about lineage even, and he's like, is that what you summoned me for, Father? So Kellis still doesn't even know why he got summoned.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that the Dunyan wanted him to kill his dad.
Well, we know at least one person wants to kill Kellis's dad.
Yeah, we know him. Yeah, we know that.
He's given up so many times. He decided to settle with Kellis.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when at one point Naor realized he wasn't going to, or he wasn't going to succeed in killing Moangos, or maybe even if he did, that it wouldn't actually accomplish what he thought it would accomplish. I thought that was quite mature of him, and then he changed his mind again. When he found out that they named the baby Moangus.
Yeah, he's very unpredictable, back and forth, very impulsive.
It's hard for a Dunyan to control, or so he thought, until he realized that he just controlled everything around him and pushed him the directions he wanted to anyways. It's just Kellis's levels of manipulation. Oh, and
Yeah.
Camion said he's a teacher no longer.
Mhm.
He's not a spy anymore. He's not a teacher. He doesn't answer to the mandate, it seems. He's chosen Kellis over Essenet, over his school. So he seems ready to teach Kellis the Gnosis like he said he was going to.
Yeah, I do find a Kamian's faith in Kellis a little bit confusing. I'm I'm not entirely convinced, or it's not his reasons for believing, like being willing to give up everything for Kellis and believing that he's somehow going to save the world. There just doesn't seem to be that much ground for that. Like it seems like it's based more of on a feeling rather than anything else. Or maybe it's just product of Kellis's manipulation. Like maybe he worked Akamian too well. But there doesn't seem to be enough like logical reasons for him to believe, like for him to sacrifice everything for Kellis, especially after all like the things that Kellis did to him concerning Esmenet and
I think his reasonings, the first part, are because of their dream, the prophecy that the Dunyan will return. Like he's the second coming of Seswatha.
He's a harbinger.
And the fact that since he dreams Seswatha's dreams, so he kind of like knows King Kelmomis, he knows that Kellis is more than Kelmomis, more than Seswatha. So his potential might be enough to overweigh the fact that they seem to have lost whatever the tool they used to kill the original No God with, the Heron Spear. It seems to have disappeared. So Akamian knows that they don't really stand a chance, but he thinks with this guy that's the Harbinger, that's also smarter than who Akamian considers the smartest people, there's hope. So Kellis is like hope to prevent the second apocalypse, the only hope according to him.
Yeah, but the prophecy itself is quite ambiguous. It's not immediately clear if the Anasarimber is supposed to save the world, or well, it doesn't really say anything about him saving or destroying the world. It just says that he's the harbinger of the apocalypse. So we know that the apocalypse probably coming, but it's not clear what Kellis's role in it is.
Yeah, just that he's really smart. And there was like a point where the Acadian was wondering what his intellect could do with the Gnosis, because the Mandate are like little kids that know the Gnosis, and if Kellis knows it, just like he did with mathematics and all of the literature, he can maybe see further than even the Mandate can into whatever their own magic is. Maybe he could be cooler than Seswatha. Seswatha didn't have 2,000 years of genetic manipulation and training. And I think Akamian sees the glimpses of that. Just sees the hope that since Kellis appears to be more, that he has a chance against the No God.
Yeah, well, Akamian is an optimist.
Yeah, he has to be. So did you like it on the? Did you like this book better on the reread, both of you?
I think I probably liked it the same or maybe a little bit less. Because on the first read I was just so excited to see what was going to happen. Whereas like this time I already knew. So I had things that I was looking forward to. The ending specifically. But the march and the battles, because I already knew the outcome, were a little bit less exciting to read about this time. And also,
about you,
it's
Daniel?
just sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's just like compared to Dark. Like I think Darkness is the one that like there's so like it's so dense. There's so much in it that like even if you reread a couple of times, there's still things that you can get out from it. I think this book, the Warrior Prophet, is it doesn't seem as dense. Like there's a little bit less for you to you know put your teeth in. But it was still fun. Like I still enjoyed it, especially the latter half of the book.
What about you, Daniel?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed watching us go from 150,000 people down to 70 maybe now. 70 just shriveled up people whose arms are smaller than their swords. It's just been fun to read the hardship. And sad. It's savage to just think that happened in history.
Yeah.
That these people had a bunch of atrocities done against them, so they muster a big army together and go commit the same atrocities in the name of different gods, thinking that one atrocity is less bad than the next because it's in the name of the right god. And the right god is all about perspective. Just like in history, the Christians and the Muslims both murdered entire peoples. So that's what we're seeing, kind of. And it was fun to read about. Sad, but fun.
It's gonna be a blurb on a book. It was fun to read about the hardship.
And now we're just to the most battle-hardened, battle-tested group of people left that are all completely devout to someone, enough to slit their throats in unison.
I mean, the number of casualties in this book is pretty crazy. Considering that we started at, I think, like 300,000, we're down to 50,000. And that's even before the last battle begins. Like the amount of people that died is, I can't really fathom it.
And all the cities that were sacked along the way, and
yeah, and like a lot of the massacres or the horrors, like you don't really like they're sort of mentioned on the sidelines. You don't actually get to see them. But like, I imagine what the book would be like if you also get the fan perspective, or like some of the peoples that they conquered along the way. I mean, it's an interesting choice to have just, I think, well, except for like very small exceptions, to have just the story told from the point of view of the Inrithi.
And then how the war kind of just dragged on in areas, just like marching mostly, dying and marching. was the same experience, I guess you guys kind of said you felt. It was like a long drag on, wear you down, and then boom at the end, a large explosion at the end, which is, I guess, kind of what they went through.
Yeah. I would also say one reason why I was not as excited about this book is just I think there's too much Saban, just a little too much. Like, I understand he has a purpose in this book, but maybe you could have the scenes with him done from a like different POV character. Just a suggestion.
Poor Saban.
Sarsalis. You want
Yeah.
Sarsalis inspecting Saban, huh?
Sounds like a preferable option for me.
Poor Saban.
Oh, we also saw Ursula's shrink hammer again. Did you just catch that? He
Shrinker.
chopped a mastodon's head off in one single swipe.
Well, that's right.
Pretty brutal. I feel like he also yelled at Nair too, but you couldn't see what he was saying because they speak a different language. He was just yelling at him. I think mocking him because he looked like he slit his own throat.
Yeah,
calling him a weeper.
But I think the problem is that I think Nayor always thinks that everyone's mocking him. Like he always thinks the worst possible thing is happening. So it's I don't know if we can think of him as a reliable narrator in that particular scene.
It's true. He does always think someone's laughing at him, though.
Yeah. It's because all the voices in his head are all like negative voices that are laughing at him. Pellis is just constantly laughing at him in his head. Moingus laughing at him. All his tribespeople, all his uncles that he had to kill for calling him a weeper.
Good stuff. You guys have anything else you want to mention?
No, I think I can't really think of anything else. I think we covered all the important bits. Did you have anything you wanted to discuss that we didn't get to, Daniel?
I'm sure we missed a little bit, but no. I guess the only people that know Sephra Mooney was a skin spy is a Lazarus now. He didn't tell anyone. They said he died of hemoplexy, the disease or whatever.
Yeah. Eleazaris and the new King Regent of Hyaenon, I think. Whose names I don't remember.
And then I guess we missed the part where the Zed and Yeni tried to assassinate Sarsalis and drop like hot tar on him. And the fact that he had to be like all secreted because his face was unfurled when he saved Convis from Martimus, when he killed Martimus.
Yeah, they shot him with the arrow that had a fire at the tip of it.
Dropped tar all over him and burned him.
Yeah.
And then the Synthes is like, oh, you got to put your face back together anyways. And it just said, basically the screams had to happen. They screamed, but it pushed them all together. So the next time they seen him, Nair could like see the lines in his face, but just wasn't sure what was going on at first till he connected the short Pellis with this guy. But then I think that might be mostly it. Mastodons. The mastodons were cool. Thinking about like crazy cages. I guess we kind of got that in the Lord of the Rings, right? The elephant things with the flat stages on them and all the people fighting off of them.
Mm.
I don't quite think these mastodons were that big. I think these were just like normal mastodons, which are big, but
Not giant.
Yeah, the level of animal cruelty in this book is it's pretty high. You got
Yeah.
the camels and the horses and the mastodons.
in all fairness, humans are animals too. In this book, humans are animals, and they're also treated unfairly on almost every page.
Yeah,
Tabby
but
cats.
yeah, the cats as well. Well, I was gonna say you won't. It's like it's the humans doing the killing. But I guess you have some mastodons killing humans as well, so it evens out. I don't know.
I found myself imagining what a mastodon tastes like. Just starving out there on the battlefield, sitting on top of like a giant elephant cow thing.
Yeah, I was more curious about the books.
Mm.
What the books were tasting like, huh?
Yeah, especially I
That
think
was like
they're like sorceress books, aren't they?
I think that was the best joke. Akamian made a joke about how like they had their books were like foul because they had bad taste or something. So they're eating like foul tasting books.
Yeah.
there was a couple of good jokes. Aka deciding he was going to joke with Essinet about uh, his little tent going from a tiny tent to this big giant thing, and next it's going to be the Andamine Heights. She's going to be the queen. And
Yeah.
then he still says it after he's been all defeated, and it just doesn't hit. Doesn't hit.
I felt a great secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah.
I you have to feel bad for Kami. But also it's maybe kind of his fault. A little bit. Maybe.
Mostly.
How long could you guys survive off the books you have? Let's talk about this. If we're all alone and we had to just survive off our books, how long could we each live?
To boil books?
I've never read a book before, but
I think like their books are probably made of something like
leather,
vellum or leather. Like I don't think you can. I mean, all my books are just paper books or digital books. Not sure how you could make a soup out of a normal paper book. I don't know if it has any nutritional values.
So our books are more useless than they used to be. They used to be way less useless.
Yeah, we should just go back to making books out of what is it, like baby lambs or something? They make the pages from.
Yeah. Speaking of animal abuse, all animals kind of. I was even telling Steve a week or two ago, I feel like, that there's even some books that are bound with human skin. 2 or 3 is still in existence.
I guess they will make a good soup then.
There's a small amount of cannibalism going on, I think, in the city, wasn't there? I feel like I heard
think it
it.
was hinted at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did hint at it.
I don't know what I would do. I'm a picky eater. Definitely not gonna cut a vein on my horse and just suck the blood out.
Depends on how thirsty you are, I guess.
This is true. Oh, that reminds me of the part where even Nair was contemplating it, and he's like thinking about what Kellis told him, and he's like, lies made flesh. I wonder
Yeah.
what lies would taste like. That was so good.
Yeah, that was also the one moment where Troya sends for him. Like he sends him a message, and then Naor storms into his room. Is like, dude, I cannot read. Why you're sending me missives?
Oh,
yeah.
what are these chicken scratch?
Yeah.
Send word, I said.
I forgot about that.
Funny parts. Look at that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I
Amidst
think
all
like
of the
yeah.
horrible things that happened. A million dead people, maybe.
Yeah, but it does. Apart from the very last few pages, like it does not feel. I mean, it does feel dark to me, but it's not. It's not as graphic as maybe you would think it would be. Did you find the book like dark? Like, does it meet your standards for what grim dark's supposed to be?
I think I met the standard. I don't think it was as dark as the first one, or as a lot of other ones.
You don't understand why people call it the darkest thing they've ever read yet.
It's not. It's. I don't think it's the darkest. I still think Beyond Redemption's darker.
Katerina still doesn't think it's the darkest thing she's ever read.
I would say House of Sacrifice is dark.
Yeah.
But I will be reading The Great Ordeal and The Unholy Consult soon, so we'll probably have another conversation after that. I expect to change my mind, but we'll see.
I think you will. But I don't know yet. The last two books were just one big book. It was supposed to be just one big book.
Yeah, I did hear that it got split into 2 parts, which seems to be a common thing with these long fantasy series.
Yeah, I started writing, one thing led to another. Now I got 3,000 pages. What do I do? Seems to be what happens.
I have heard that because of the paper shortages and stuff, that there's a few series that were changed from like a 5-book to a 3-book, or 5 to 4, 4 to 3. So they've had to wrap it up sooner than they planned to. But
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Like I don't know. Like sometimes it might help. Sometimes with these really long series, like you get the sense that things could be trimmed down a little bit. But then I don't know. Like if you already planned a 5-book story and then you have to somehow reduce it to 3, that it would seem like a lot of the nuance would probably get lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough waiting for 2 weeks.
At least we know it's a shorter book.
Yeah.
So we'll probably be able to get through it in what, 3 weeks? 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Probably like 4
Once
weeks.
we get back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which means we'll be done in December with the first series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about the end of the Thousandfold Thought. I'll probably have to bring some tissues, but it'll be fun.
Oh wow.
I'm interested to think what you guys think about Scope, since you guys have probably read more fantasy series than me recently.
Hmm.
And the Grace of Kings kind of got me thinking about Scope because a lot happens, but I feel like I knew the characters less well, maybe because of it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I've seen Nair go through a lot of struggles and Damien go through some of the worst times and best times, and Esmet already at this point. And the like flowery parts of his writing are the internal monologue where he's expanding on these characters. Not so much detail like a lot of other authors do, like describing scenery. R. Scott Bakker, when he goes deep on like the philosophy and internal struggles that the people are having. And it gets flowery.
Yeah,
But then
I
it
like
leaves
those
me
flower
feeling
parts.
like I know these characters better. Because I get that flowery internal dialogue, see all their struggles, and I can put myself in their shoes and wonder if they made the worst decisions or the logical decisions, or if everyone's just brainwashed.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that for me has been one of the major differences between the Prince of Nothing and the Aspect Emperor. Like the scope of the Aspect Emperor feels a lot larger, but I feel like the characters are given less space because of that, and I have not been able to get as attached to them as to the characters in the Prince of Nothing. Just simply because you don't get to spend as much time with each of the individual characters and you don't get to see as deep into their heads as you do with someone like Akamian or Esminet or even Callus. So I feel like that's maybe one difference between the two series for me. But I mean, there are still characters in the Aspect Emperor which I think are fantastic and or at least fascinating.
Rest in peace, Serway and Martimus and Bloody Dench.
Yeah. Yeah. Per Serway.
Yeah.
Zinnim-
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
Zinimus's eyeballs.
They have a lot of character. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Akamian says he's gonna fix me. You don't got eyes.
Yeah.
I guess the Sishwaran don't have eyes either.
Yeah,
But
I don't really see Zainem as becoming a Sishwaram.
oh, that was. What did you guys think of the metaphysics? Kind of very briefly brought it up. Zinimus is walking with Akamian and he doesn't have his eyes, but he can still see the tears of God, like reaching out towards them. So he said he could see, which is kind of weird. Also, who was it? Nair thinking about the tears of God? Maybe it was someone else, but he's like, it doesn't matter who has the tears of God, they work. Just thinking about the irony of that the Phantom could throw a tear of God and it would work the same way, and Rithi would throw a tear of God and it would work, and they worship different gods. So what's really going on?
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's not conditional on you believing in the quote
Right.
unquote right God. Yeah. I mean, the whole like religious system is still very confusing for me. I don't know what I'm supposed to believe, or if there is anyone who believes in the right thing, or if it's all just the same thing and people have different interpretations of it. It's very unclear at this point.
Are you talking about life, or are you talking about the book?
Yeah, I thought so much about Christianity when you said it, and about the Old Testament and New Testament. And
No, I'm
the
pretty much an
Mormons.
atheist, but
There's lots of different interpretations, right? Otherwise, there would just be one church. But lots of people have read the Bible and decided that it meant a little bit different thing than the other person thought, so they can charge 10% in tithing and build cool temples. Unite people, maybe. You wouldn't give your 10% of tithing to Kellis, though. I know that, Katerina.
yeah, I have trust issues when it comes to authorities, apparently.
You would pay the Icary's tax, though. Tax and tithing, they're just strangely similar.
Yeah, I guess I'm maybe too conservative. I like stability. I like what I know. And I like the Romans. You know, that's a bias. But I admit I admit it's you know, there's not much logic behind that. I just think the Icaries are fun to read about.
I'm gonna have to go look in the glossary or in the darkness after we're done here to look up a few things.
I might just read what has come before in the next book, and then wait for 2 weeks and start reading. 1 week, 1.5 weeks, something.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to continue. It'll be weird having a Friday without visiting with both of you, but we'll come back in 2 weeks and fresh and ready to go for the next one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Cool. So, Daniel, where can people find you if they want to bother you?
In the comment section of this YouTube page. I'll read it someday.
Someday.
Mm.
And Katerina, where can people find you?
Well, I sometimes also read the comments. But you can find me on the Page Chewing forum or on Instagram at the Errand.
Cool. Well, thanks to both of you for rereading this with me. It's my first time, but thanks for reading again and coming every week to talk about it. It's been a lot of fun. So, and for not spoiling anything for me, you've both done a really good job. So, thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening or watching, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.